Do you even need to learn bar chords on guitar? I mean, there's an answer that says no, you don't. But in my personal opinion, you do need to learn them. You just don't need to play them all the time. And in this video, we're going to talk about making it a little easier on yourself to play these bar chords, because that's what everybody struggles with, is just playing these bar chords clean. So you need to make it easier on yourself and make it a little more enjoyable to play them. But also we're going to talk about some alternatives, because you could go a lifetime on guitar without ever playing a bar chord and you could get by just fine. It's just you would have to like rearrange songs and stuff, and rearrange the chord voicings of things, which we can talk about that too. And in some instances it's easy to rearrange like one chord, but if you're rearranging like a ton of chords and it doesn't make a lot of sense, then it's easier to just throw in a bar chord. So first off, we're going to talk about making this easier, and a lot of making it easier is not worrying about making sure every single string is ringing out. So let's just take a G major bar chord right here. This is your 6-string bar chord. And what I did at first is I'm trying as hard as I can to push down on every string and make sure every string is ringing out with my index finger. Well, that takes a lot of pressure, right? And that takes a lot of pressure. Like, say you're playing for a couple hours or whatever, that takes a lot of pressure on your index finger to bar all those notes. And you can see here that 3 of these notes are already fretted as part of this chord. And it's a little different when you have a minor chord, right? You only have 2. But on your major chords, you can get a little lazy here because you technically only need to fret 3 strings. And I don't want you to like totally focus on, well, I need to fret the high E string, the B string, and the low E string, and forget about the other ones. But you can put a little curl in your finger, right? And you put that curl in your finger and you make sure you're getting the low E string, you make sure you're getting the high E string. That's the B string, it's the high E string. But if you mute out that B string, this is going to be lazy, but what you're doing is you're putting a curl in your finger and you're muting out that B string, because you don't want buzzing. You still don't want buzzing in this. But if you mute out that B string, still got the high E string, the low E string. That's with the B string muted out. Did that sound bad? Well, I don't think so. Then this is if you're applying all the pressure and you're getting all the notes. There's like a slight difference, and unless you have like a really great ear, it's almost hard to notice that B string's even missing. So one tip while you're playing this stuff, like don't worry if you're like not playing all the strings all the time, because if you're muting out that B string, it still sounds like the chord. And it still sounds good. And you can even take it one step further and forget about the high E string as well. And you would need to make sure you're muting the B string and the high E string, but compared to, then you're kind of missing the chime at the top. You're missing the B and the high E string, but you're getting the chord across. And it almost sounds like a power chord, but you're adding in that third, so it's not a power chord. And then if you're grabbing everything, so there's alternatives to make it easier. Like if you're not going to grab the B and the high E string, it's still going to work. If you're in a band and you got 2 people playing bar chords and you're just playing these low notes on the guitar without the B and the high E string, and you got a bass player, it might get muddy. But if you're playing by yourself, people aren't going to notice. And if you get a little lazy and you miss the B string, people aren't going to notice. But really what you got to do is you got to give your finger a little curl, roll it over a little bit, and just make sure that you're putting a little bit of pressure, but not too much pressure. And one thing, if you're like really struggling getting this stuff down, is you got to make sure your guitar is set up. And that's all I'll say about that. But if your action's like super high off the fretboard, then it's just going to hurt your hands and it's going to be really tough. And if we're talking about this 6-string bar chord, the alternative to this, because like I play songs like Garden Grove by Sublime, is just an A to a G chord. So the whole thing is just. Well, playing 2 bar chords like that ends up, you know, I've had issues where it strains out my wrist and it's like, this hurts. So what I started doing is basically playing the bar chord like this. So it's the same shape. And you're not barring the B and the high E string. You're just muting out the B string with the skin on your index finger and maybe even like your pinky finger or some of the fat from the palm of your hand. And then once you get good at this, you can pull your thumb over the top, but it doesn't even matter if you don't. And at this point, you're just playing what's called an inversion. Like in this case, for an A chord, your A would not be in the bass anymore, and you're missing your low E string and your high E string. Versus this. So you're playing the same chord. The chord still comes across. It still sounds good, but you're just not playing all the notes. You're not playing all 6 strings. You never need to play all 6 strings in a bar chord. You never need to play all 5 strings if you're on the 5th fret bar chord. And the best string to leave out is the high E string because it makes almost no difference. So if you pull your thumb over the top and you're muting out that high E string, you've just avoided playing bar chords. And no one in the audience is going to know that you didn't play that high E string. So just remember that. So, you know, number 1 tip is be a little lazier. Stop putting so much pressure on yourself to get all of these notes fretted when you don't need them all. So be a little lazier. Give yourself a break here. Come on. And then let's talk about the 5th string bar chord. So you got your 5th string bar chord. This one can be tough for people. And the other thing I do here, you know, you can really try to bend this up so you get that high E string ringing, which I haven't played it like that in so long I probably can't even do it anymore. No, I'm just going to mute it out. So I just mute this out with my ring finger. I always have played them like this ever since I realized I didn't need to put all this pressure here. You have 3 strings fretted right here, and this can be difficult. Your ring finger can be difficult, so you got to work on that. That's a bar right there. So this is not a bar, but you need to be able to fret these 3 strings. And the more you work on that, the better you're going to get at it. And then you really just need to fret the fifth string. In this instance, it's the 5th fret of the 5th string. And this is going to sound like this. And that's a way you can do that. When you make this minor, it's a little easier to fret that E string, at least in my opinion. And it gives that nice chime at the top, so you can fret that E string, but you're going to curl your finger a little bit. You're going to be a little lazier in these middle strings that you don't need because they're fretted over here. They're fretted over here, so you don't need to apply all that pressure. And that's with the high E string in there. And then if you want to be real lazy, you just take this and you just fret it like this. And you're going to need to use this index finger to mute out that high E string. So you kind of just rest it on all the other strings. It's not fretting any of them. But you are fretting that 5th fret on that 5th string. Verse with the high E string. So another instance of just being lazy, and I just want to go back for a second, because if we're playing this minor chord here, you do have to apply more pressure because you really need to get this G string in here. So you're going to have to apply more pressure with your index finger. So just roll it over, give it a little bit of curl, and you're going to give it more pressure. And get all those ringing out cleanly. And just work on this slowly because you need to build up the strength. You need to build up the callus on your entire finger and everything so that you can play these shapes. But those are the main bar chords. You have the 6th fret bar chord, major, minor, and then you have the 5th fret bar chord, major, minor. Forget about the low E string. If you're missing a B string here and there, nobody cares. And that's the main tip. And the reason I think it's so important to play bar chords is because it's like a rite of passage. Like you go from beginner guitar, you're playing all these beginner open chord songs, and then you start incorporating bar chords, and then you can play these songs with bar chords in them, no problem. And now, boom, you're an intermediate. That's where the line is drawn, I think. I mean, I don't actually know, but in my opinion, once you can play bar chords, you're an intermediate. And that's just how it goes. So it's like a rite of passage. And then once you get further along playing, say you have a D in your chord or in your song. You have a D, but you don't want to play this. You don't want to play this open shape. You want to play it up the neck. Well, you could play this D like this. And this is like your C shape, your cage shape. But you're not barring anything. If you just take your index finger and put it on that G string, 2nd fret, and then you'd be on your 3rd fret here with your middle finger on the B string, and then on the D string, you're at the 4th fret, and then your 5th fret is your pinky. That's a shape to avoid a bar chord right there. You can avoid a bar chord. It's going to give you some different voicings. And then D, a lot of songs with D have a B minor in them. So you can go right from that to your B minor, and you can avoid your bar entirely with this B minor if you just get rid of that high E string. We already talked about this. You can avoid this shape's bar chord. There's other ways in the cage system, but to play these chords, I mean, you can get really wild and play stuff like this. Like this would be a B chord. But try jumping to that chord quick. It's going to take you a lot of practice. That would be a B chord. So there's options here. We got options. And you can avoid bar chords all the way, but like I play an A chord like this. And I suggest that you do too at some point. Because at first I was like, that's going to be too hard. I don't know how people do that. But then once you start doing it all the time, your finger gets strong. Just eat a little protein, you know? Grow them finger muscles. And then you got options off of this. It makes it easier to do this little noodling stuff. You can also play chords like this. Like this is a C chord. This is a C chord. It wasn't a clean C chord, but it was a C chord. And you have different options to play these chords all over the neck. And I know like this, I would still consider this a bar chord because you're barring right here. But you could play that C chord obviously like this. Up the neck, it would be more like this. That's too far up. On an acoustic, it's too far up. That's the way it is. So you could play that C chord like this to avoid a bar chord. But like, let's take Flake by Jack Johnson. I've talked about that song a few times on the channel. So you have this shape, which you don't have to bar this shape. And this is just the intro to Flake. But Flake is, or the verse. So it's D minor to F, B flat, back to F. And everybody hates the F and the B flat. So if you're like strictly like, I'm not gonna play bar chords, then you could play this D minor like this, and you can get rid of that high E string, and it's technically not a bar chord. But if you want to get rid of this shape altogether, then go play your D minor over here. And then it goes from D minor to F, so it's like, but you don't want to play that F bar chord because it's too hard. And then how are you going to go to this B flat bar chord? I mean, that's harder than the F. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to our B flat. And this is what I'm talking about. You can just avoid them all together. But in my opinion, it's not worth avoiding things on guitar because you need to build up the strength in your hand, and there's so much like muscle memory in guitar that it's like, why not just learn this stuff? And I know it can be frustrating. So like if you're a beginner and you don't want to play the song like the way it's written or whatever, or the way it was taught to you on YouTube, there are different chord voicings and they're going to be harder to find if you don't know them all, but there's ways around playing bar chords. If you're determined enough, you can figure it out. You can be like, I'm never playing bar chords, I don't care. Like you could play this like this, like say that you're not doing the bar chord version of this. Versus the bar chord version. So I just played a song. I mean, if you've ever listened to Jack Johnson or watched him play, like all his songs are bar chords all the time. He did not take the easy route. He didn't go, I'm going to learn these bar chords without the bars. He was like, I am doing bar chords and I am doing them better than everybody else who's ever done them. That's what he was thinking. But if you're like, I like his songs, but I don't want to do the bar chords, there's options for you. But, you know, it's one thing that it's going to take time. You got to get strength in your hand, get the calluses built up, and you're going to be able to figure it out. If you don't have a guitar that's set up, a lot of beginner guitars aren't set up very well. It costs money to get a setup, so that always stinks. I mean, you can look up a YouTube video and just adjust the truss rod most of the time. You know, make sure your relief is set, which if you have little feeler gauges that you can get at a mechanic shop, those feeler gauges can help you there. One thing on an acoustic guitar, the only way to adjust the action is to sand down the saddle. So I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that if I didn't feel confident in it. So, and it might not be worth it to set up a cheap guitar. But if you're gung-ho about guitar and you really are trying to get better, then it might be worth it to set it up, or it might be worth upgrading your guitar to something a little nicer. You know, but bar chords are going to help with your muscle memory, the strength in your hands, so I definitely think you want to learn them, but there are ways around them, and just know that you don't have to play them all the time. Like if your wrist starts hurting, then start playing your bar chords like this, right? Because then look at my wrist is a little more straight on here, and if I take my thumb off of that low E string, it's even more straight on compared to this. So if you got pain in your hand, and that's pretty much one of the reasons I started learning all these other shapes, is because I was like, my wrist hurts, so how can I keep playing guitar without hurting my wrist? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you like this lesson, please like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. You know, YouTube subscriptions are like, we guard them, right? We're like, I'm not subscribing to this guy. But they're like one of the most worthless things, because you subscribe to a channel, as soon as you stop watching it, it doesn't really show up in your home feed anymore. Unless they make like a video on something that you're interested in, then it might pop up as a recommendation, but it kind of just fades in the abyss, you know? So just keep that in mind, and thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.